I think I told you before is I'm unemployable. I got back on Monday to line school. Tuesday, they called me. My teacher was right there. And he's like, yep, you're showing up in Hampton, Minnesota on Thursday. Be here at 7:30. And I'm like, well, I got to finish line school. And the general foreman goes, well, tell your teacher to pass you. Tell him you got a job. People call me lucky. The more I do, the luckier I get. $800 tire was blown out before 10 a.m. You know, I was $1,600 down just today.
Literally before 10 a.m.
Slow is smooth is fast. If you can be, smooth with something, it'll become faster and faster and faster.
If you're thinking about a career in the trades and you want to know what employers actually look for, what the work is really like, and what nobody tells you before you get started, you're in the right place. Built in the Midwest features conversations that'll help you figure out if this path is for you.
Well, good morning. And welcome to Built in the Midwest podcast. I have the man, the myth, the legend, all right, Mike Dombrowski with Dombrowski Tree Service, all right, coming on the show, today. So thank you very much for being here today. This podcast is all about interviewing professionals in different industries. And, when I was talking to RJ about this, I was like, I can interview Mike on the lineman side, on the tree trimming side, the CDL side, the entrepreneurship side. And it's just, you've done a little bit. And now I'm seeing some of your stuff go viral on TikTok and Facebook. I'd like to think I'm one of your biggest fans on there, but you've had some viral posts and reels, and I would say you're almost influencer status now as well. So you're doing a little bit of everything, and it's awesome. Let's get started with kind of where you began, because one thing, we work with a lot of kids in high school, junior high, that have a lot of ideas, but they have no idea where to start, right? So if we can talk about that, kind of where you started and your journey over the last, however long it's been, 15 years or so, till you got to this point here.
Yeah. Well, as you know, Dad, he had the music store, hey? Jim's Music.
Which is very different from what you're into now. Huge. Yeah.
Everyone I talk to, they're like, well, do you play any music? No, absolutely not. I can't. But, I knew from a young age that I didn't like being cooped up in an office. I saw my dad working in the office all the time, and he'd rather be outside, and then I'd go to gyms after school, and I'd, polish guitars or wash windows or whatever, right?
Did you play any instruments?
Trumpet
a little bit? Okay. Does that count?
No. But, I knew from a young age, like, I didn't want to work in an office, I guess. So then in high school hit, right? And I worked at Red Pine Equipment.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I worked there, and
that was in high school.
That was in high school.
Oh wow.
Yeah, right after high school, I remember thinking about. I remember wanting to be a lineman because I knew they made a lot of money.
So did you have? Okay, it wasn't your dad that was a lineman or anything. No. Did you have a family member or a friend that was a lineman? What was the seed there that got planted? Because I don't think I knew what a lineman was when I was a senior in high school. So
this probably isn't good on a podcast. But I remember 12th grade, right? I was it was 12th grade. But one of the guidance counselors, they're like, hey, like, what do you think? How about like an aircraft technician? Or you can go to school to be an aircraft technician, or you can go do this or that or whatever. And I think that's when I discovered what a lineman was, because I was looking at, all the different trades, because basically what they were telling me is, you're not college fit.
You're not.
Right? Like, I graduated with like a 1.87, I think it was.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean that just meant just the education. The traditional education didn't interest you.
100%.
Yeah.
But I think that's when I realized what a lineman was, or what they got paid.
Okay, so you saw that side of things and said, "Whoa, wait a second."
Yeah.
Because it's one of the highest of all the trades.
Yeah, and then including the retirement and stuff like that.
Oh, absolutely.
I guess that's where that's where I first saw it. But I mean, I went to this truck driving school in 2000. And am I jumping too much?
What's that? No, not at all. I love it.
I went to this truck driving school, I think in 2012 or 2012 or 2013.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, it was
because you needed your CDL to
be a lineman.
To be a lineman.
Yeah.
And to get into line school as a part of line school. And it's one thing that's why we do the CDL first for all the linemen is because you can't apply to Mo Valley or LBAT or that's CDL. Every lineman you're unemployable. Yeah. And a lot of linemen don't realize that or people that want to be linemen. Yeah. You know, it's like, no, that's imperative that you have that and that you get that and that you hold on to that because you're not a lineman without that. Yeah. So that's huge. So after getting your CDL and getting through line school, you know, you talk to a lot of guys that struggle after line school, getting employed and get into an apprenticeship. What did that process look like for you?
I didn't finish line school.
You didn't finish line school. Okay,
I did not.
That's kind of unheard of.
I technically finished it, but I remember Mo Valley had not open interviews, but they had an interview slot, right? So me and my wife now, we went down on like a Wednesday. We drove to Minnesota, and because 160 at the time they were hiring like crazy. There was a big project going on, called CapEx 2020. Basically, the extension cord from Wisconsin over to South Dakota.
The extension cord from Wisconsin to South Dakota.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I knew that they were hiring like crazy. So I went to local.
So you're working in Minnesota quite a bit?
That's all. That's where I worked.
Yeah.
But I didn't even I remember I got back on Monday to line school, right? And Tuesday they called me. The apprenticeship called me and they tell me who I've got to, the general foreman I've got to call and blah blah blah. And I called him and my teacher was right there. And he's like, "Yep, you're showing up in Hampton, Minnesota on Thursday. Be here at 7:30." And I'm like, "Well, I got to finish line school." And the general foreman goes, "Well, tell your teacher to pass you. Tell him you got a job. They succeeded."
The point. Yeah, yes. Exactly.
And so I mean, I left, and then I did books online and whatever.
Yeah, but that is wild when you really think about it. You know, how many people in trade school or school literally gets hired before they graduate, and they say, "All right, yeah, like, well, you'll." Whatever, finish up online or we'll graduate you early because the fact of the matter is that is the goal. The goal is to get you employed. And I love that mindset, right? And I think it's important that more institutions have that mindset that, hey, when those opportunities arise, push your people out the door, take advantage of them because, and this is what I hear from a lot of the school's graduates is they learn a lot in that apprenticeship. And that's where really you learn almost everything. You know what I mean? But you got to get into the apprenticeship. Yeah. But from there, you learn everything. All right, so that was that would be considered the contracting side of things, right? And after that, you got into I would say is a goal of almost all linemen I know. Is a goal to get back home, right? So talk about that and being able to come back home.
Yeah. Well, while we were in Minnesota, we had twin daughter. We got pregnant and we had twin daughters, so. We were planning on moving back home, or my wife was, to be closer with family.
Absolutely.
And
takes a village.
Oh yeah. But I started applying. I mean, and even I was probably a second step apprentice. I was calling Elger Delta. I was calling City Electric. I was calling, just seeing if they had interviews.
You weren't a journeyman at that point.
No. I was I think I was a third or fourth step apprentice.
So you still had a little ways to go yet.
Yeah. I was a fourth step. I was a hot apprentice. And I ended up, the city let somebody go or whatever happened, and I went there and I interviewed. Well, that was it. I took it right away. They called me on a Thursday and I told my boss, I said, "I'll give you 2 weeks if you really need it." And he goes, what do you really want to say? I was like, I want to give you a 2-day notice. He goes, if you could finish this week. It was like Wednesday.
Yeah, it was a Wednesday.
And I was
finish this week.
And I was like, no, I mean like a 2-day notice. Like I'm leaving 2-day.
No.
I didn't. But that was. He laughed.
2-day.
Yeah,
2-day.
2-day.
No.
Yeah.
No. But when those opportunities present themselves,
Take them. I mean, 9 times out of 10, a municipality, a co-op, they don't want an apprentice because then they have to pay for their apprenticeship.
to finish up their apprenticeship.
Right.
Yeah.
Most journeymen won't go to these places because they're getting like another $12, $15 an hour being a contractor.
To stay contracting.
Yeah.
And you see that where some come off the road to go local, then they're like, they miss those bigger paychecks.
Yeah.
Let's get back on the road for the contracting side. So would you say that it's kind of depends on where you are in life a little bit?
Oh yeah, 100%.
On what might work best for you?
Yeah. I've met 55-year-old journeymen out on the in the trade that they've got what do they call it? The 3 Ds. A divorce, a DUI, and whatever the other D was. But like those, I mean, and I've met 40, 50-year-old guys that are married, 3 kids, and they're living on the road, right? That's their lifestyle.
Yeah.
And then I've met, I met a 70-year-old guy that was on the road. No kidding.
Wow.
His name was Stretch.
And he was still
He was
doing line work?
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was like a foreman.
Yeah.
Non-working foreman. But they hired him for his brain. He was smart. He was good.
Yeah, a second set of eyes
Yes.
on the project.
With big bifocals.
Yeah, no, exactly. Just carried around binoculars. No, that's awesome, and it's one of those things that I think for everybody, different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
Right, you don't know what works for you might not work for somebody else,
Yeah.
and
Go out and try.
and vice versa. And I really think especially to the young people out there, is the takeaway to some of this is to really embrace all opportunities.
Oh, yeah.
And would you now they say that opportunities present themselves when you least expect it. Have you found that to be the case in your life as well?
100%. And there something comes to mind. People call me lucky, right? And it's the more I do, the luckier I get.
Yeah.
Right? Have you ever heard that?
Yep.
Maybe I'm saying it wrong, but
No, it's very much like that. Like I've always heard like that. The harder I work, the more luck I seem to have.
absolutely.
And there's a lot of truth to that.
Because I've messed up more times than I'd like to admit. But I might be really good at something, but I've messed it up 25 times before I got it right.
Absolutely.
I've just done it a lot more than you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And God, I'm reading a book right now. It's called The Richest Man in Babylon. Right? A great book. I think anyone out there, you got to read this book. It'll definitely change the way you think about
100%.
finances and money and everything. But that was one of the things that he talked about with that. And how you look at stuff and invest stuff and how you work and kind of the frugality of it, but also how like they had a long story short, they had a meeting and they talked to a lot of people, and every person in the room raised their hand. At one point in time, they had luck slip through their fingers, that they had great opportunities, right, that they could have grasped onto, and 20/20 vision, they let them slip through their fingers. Every single person, right? And this book was just like 1,000 years old, but it's so true, and it's something that I think everybody out there, like if you really think what was a great opportunity that you could have taken advantage of and you didn't, and looking back is like, you let it slip through your fingers. So it's one of those things that, you kind of embracing those things and embracing those opportunities.
Yeah.
When you
embrace the
when you get them.
opportunities, embrace the suck, embrace everything
Yes.
you're learning or everything you're messing up with or whatever it is in life.
Absolutely.
Right? You're learning. You can.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's the other thing is like the fail faster, and I actually just told my godson this the other day. They failed a t-ball game or little league game. He was down on himself. I was like, no, that's a good thing. I was like, failing is the best thing. I was like, when you win all the time, that's no fun because you don't learn anything from winning. Yeah. You learn when you fail. You learn when you get knocked down. that's when you learn, right?
And later on in life, it's if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room.
You're in the wrong room. Exactly.
I want to be with other professionals learning, constantly.
Exactly.
If I'm not learning, I'm not having
progressing,
fun.
growing, challenging,
Yes.
challenging. Looking at what's the next thing, or how can we better what we're doing. And I think that's so important. So important. You want people that are going to bring you up, build you up, and that ingenuity and creativity. And I would say you of all people have more of that than almost anyone I know. And I mean that. It absolutely blows me away. Well, I want to continue on in your journey. So came back and working for your municipality as a lineman. And then I want to talk about your transition into Dombrowski Tree Service, right? And what that's done, because that's something that I think a lot of people out there like the idea of entrepreneurship and business ownership. But I would say, in my personal opinion, like, it is a great thing for some people and not a great thing for other people. And it's important to know the pros and cons of it. As somebody that has done both, a lot of both, right? Talk to me about that.
The transition from the city
to something that's guaranteed.
Yeah.
And they both have their guarantees.
Yeah. So working. Can I use wages? Can I say wages?
Yeah, of course. Okay. Absolutely.
So I went from contracting to making like over 130,000 as an apprentice.
Wow.
To working at the city. I remember my.
Okay, I didn't even know that.
Oh yeah.
As a contractor,
I was working 7/12s.
Okay, so
I was working 7/12s.
So
I worked 7/12s.
Busting your hump.
Yeah, almost 2 years. But I still remember, right? Like you were talking about guarantees of things. So working contracting, and then I remember coming to the city, and we got paid every 2 weeks at the city. I remember I got my check, and my foreman was sitting right next to me. He goes, "Ain't like that contractor money, is it, kid?" And I go, "Oh, is this it? Am I getting another?" No. But I mean, still, working at the city, you made right around $100,000, and I was home every night, right? And I went from 7/12s to 5/8s, and
with 3 kids
and a wife.
That
was the goal, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I was happy, but I was from 2 years, working 7/12, so that was like burned into me. I worked Saturday, I worked Sunday. I remember fighting just to be able to clean my clothes on a Sunday, to find time, right?
Just to do the basic laundry.
Yes.
And then go back to work.
Yes. So like when I got to the city, I'm sitting there, I'm twiddling my thumbs. I'm working 5/8s. We were living with her mom at the time. And
did you feel like that was a part-time job?
Oh yeah. Oh, 100%.
Like
7:30 we show up.
40 hours a week. And that's something I think it's important to recognize, because some people work 40 hours a week. They're like, oh God, 40 hours. I don't even wish that, but like 40 hours, it's part-time. Really. It's part-time. Really, it's important for people to recognize that. Like 40 hours ain't nothing. Yeah. Ain't nothing, especially when you were 7/12s. Now that's insanity.
Yeah. There was a guy, 9 to 5 will feed the family, 5 to 9 will feed your future, right?
Oh, I like that.
That was always I especially when I got into entrepreneurship, that's where that grew. But anyways, the working at the city, we were living with her mom at the time. So I was working 5/8s. I got done at 4:00. I'm twiddling my thumbs. I'm like, I got to do this. I got to do that. I was trying to do trim. I can't do trim. I'm trying to help. And mom and dad, they were getting a tree cut down. And I remember they told me, they're like, well, the guy wants $2,200 to knock this tree down and to clean it up. And I was like, well, shit, I can do that. I'm a lineman, or I'm still an apprentice.
Yeah.
But
you've done a little bit of that in the trade.
A little bit. You do snap cuts, you cut down poles or trim a tree or whatever, but it's very small.
I could use a chainsaw.
Yeah. I had a climbing belt. I had spurs. I had, I was able to climb. So I was like, well, I can do that, and they're like, well, we'd rather pay you than pay him. So I went there. I cut it all down. I remember this to a T. It took me like 4 hours to cut it down. I was like, hell yeah, then it took me 20 hours to clean it up.
Yeah.
Right. But that was like the transition from I was like, oh, I can do this, and I needed something to do after work, supplement some income plus just to stay sane.
Yeah, exactly.
At that time.
Because it was ingrained in you to work and stay busy. And you get too much free time. It's like, okay, I got to do something.
Yeah.
I got to go.
Yeah. And so I went from, that's kind of how the tree service was started. I knew nothing.
That's awesome.
I knew nothing
That's
about
awesome.
trees. I knew nothing about species. I knew nothing.
But right there, you know what I mean? You wouldn't think, at the time, you don't think that's a big opportunity, right? At the time, right? Say, whatever, parents see a tree cut down, like, hey, let me save you a few bucks. It was almost your generosity and wanting to help that kind of got you into something great. You know what I mean? Which is something to be said about kind of being a good person, right? Pete Miller, I don't remember him. God bless his soul, he passed away. But he said, why do you do the right thing? Because it's the right thing to do. But it was like one of those things where you didn't know that opportunity was going to be there, but it was, and you took advantage of it, and then boom, that seed was planted, and it's bloomed and blossomed and
grew
everything else. So take me to still working at the city, and then still had Dombrowski Tree Service. At what point in time did you decide, all right, I want to do this full time? This is what I want to do.
It was, I was in business. I started the business in 2016, and it was 2022, 2021, something like that. What made me switch? Growing up, my mom, right? She was very set on insurance. You have to have insurance, but I had very good insurance at the city, and I remember my mom always told me, she's like, you got that guaranteed check, you got that insurance, you got to have insurance, And I remember in the week that I quit, we grew substantially. I had 4 full-time guys, a bunch of equipment and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
And at that point, I guess I was fed up with the politics.
Yeah.
In any organization, you're going to have them.
Absolutely.
But
I think municipalities, you do have more.
Yes.
There is. It's just one of those things. I've seen that across the board.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean?
Not even. Munis, co-ops. It's tough.
Yep.
You're always going to have that.
Absolutely. But you get to a point where it's like, all right, kind of enough is enough. I can do this, But it's really interesting because there's very few people out there that I know that kind of got that. I don't want to say gravy job, but got that gravy job in a municipality after going out contracting. That's kind of the goal, right? And most people, boom, they're done after that. They're good.
Yep. They settle down. But not,
they settle right in. No, seriously, that's it. That's it. And you, as opposed to just settling down and that's it, no, you jumped into that 37-degree cold plunge, all right? And you said, I'm going to wake the hell up because I'm ready for my next adventure, right? And for people that don't know, Mike Dombrowski was one of the founding members of the lineman school as well. And so who knew that you were going to get into that as well and kick that off and look at how that seed has blossomed and people coming from all over the Midwest and really all over the country for that program as well. Looking at, I think I love your story and all the different things, but to somebody that kind of going back to that person in high school right now, that guy or gal that's being pushed and pulled in different ways, you know what I mean? What other advice would you give to that person right now?
Try it all. Put your nose down to the grindstone, but figure out what you enjoy. If you don't enjoy working with your hands, if you don't enjoy working in the cold, right? Find out what you enjoy. You've got a pretty good idea in high school.
Yeah.
If you enjoy studying or if you enjoy the book work, maybe college. If you don't, Try a trade. If you enjoy welding, I was telling you before, I got a guy that works for me, a high schooler, and he's going to be a welder. I've got another kid that works for me. He's going to the line school in August. You know?
That's awesome.
So
that's awesome.
I let you got to figure out what you enjoy and you run with it because you're doing it for the rest of your life.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And so, the other thing is, did you always enjoy every job that you had? No. Right. So, and I think that's important because I had a lot of jobs that I not only did not enjoy, but I kind of hated.
Yeah.
Kind of hated. And
but
looking
you'll
back,
never know. You'll never know if you hate that job unless you try it.
No, exactly. But there's some jobs. There's one in particular I really did not like. But if I could go back, I would do it again for the simple fact of the skill sets.
How much you learned.
And how much I learned from that job. And that's what kind of blows myself away, where it's like, okay, you hated that job, you didn't like it, but yet you would go back and do that again? Like, yeah, I would. Because
it's another tool in the tool set.
It's another tool in the toolbox, right? And so I think from a young person where, yes, look at what you enjoy, what you like, but also try new things and dabble in different things. And if you don't enjoy it, that's okay. There might be other really positive things and things that you might learn that you maybe never thought about, right? You can still hate something, but also learn from it,
And
I know
use those things throughout life.
Absolutely. Especially now in kind of more of a school director role. Is like I think back to some of the managers and some of the bosses I had growing up, right? And like some of the ones I just hated. And now like I thank them because now I know, I've taken some from them and I've also taken kind of what I don't want to be like as well. But it's not a negative. It actually ended up being a positive. And
you learned. Because you learned and learned and learned. From
Exactly.
the good to the bad.
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't ever take those chances, then you'll never experience that, right? And I think that's important, And that's the other thing. I was just talking to ISD class here. This was a few weeks ago. Did a tour, and I asked everyone in the room, and these were all 10th, 11th, 12th graders. How many of you guys have jobs? And there was like 3 people in like 30 that raised their hands. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, what are you people doing? I'm like, you're in high school. Mm-hmm. You're in high school. I was like, sports aren't 7 days a week, right? And I know a lot of you guys aren't playing sports because it seems like every sport team, people just don't play sports like they used to. Right. I hear that from coaches all the time, that they're always trying to recruit more people. And I'm like, we're going into summer here, guys. I was like, you just need a W-2. Mm-hmm. You need some work experience. It's one of the biggest things that I think I see with other employers that I talk to is like, these high school graduates don't have any work experience. And they come here and they say, well, how do I know if you're a good worker? Mm-hmm. You don't have any work ethic. You don't have any previous employers.
Mm-hmm. It's even the kids that, everyone talks about, like, I'll go work at McDonald's, right? But even at McDonald's, what are you learning? You're learning customer
service. Absolutely.
You're learning how to look. I've had guys come and work for me that when they shake my hand, they go like that, and it's like, oh, hey.
Or they give you a limp wrist.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Is that?
It's like, what is your
This is my strong hand.
Is your hand broken?
Yeah.
A nice firm handshake. That's all really important stuff.
Yeah.
It's funny you say that because I started out at Burger King, all right, when I was 14 years old, right? That's where I worked. And I would think, honestly, my communication ability today literally goes back to 14 years old at Burger King because I had the headset on, right? And you had people coming through drive-thru and welcome to Burger King. My name is Josh. How can I help you? And I said that thousands and thousands and thousands of times. And all of a sudden, get better at communicating because I would communicate with people all day long. And then the fast-paced environment, right? And it's one of those things where business is fast. It just is. And you got to be on your toes. So like you said, and then the timeliness, punching a card, and understanding that, and then the different shifts, right? Of course, they loved, me to work on Saturday. Saturday at lunchtime was always the busiest, right? And
at Burger King,
so,
are you sure?
Yes, I was sure. Yeah. All right, and that was back when they had the microphones coming out, so you'd yell everything back.
Yeah.
Before credit cards,
okay.
So everything was cash, so you had to count change back, and you had to be quick about it.
Yeah.
I remember this funny story, but I got yelled at one time because It was back when there was just all cash. And a lot of the items would come out to like $4.02 or $3.01. And so I would just literally put a bunch, like 50 cents in pennies in my pocket because I hated giving back 99 cents.
Sure.
And so I remember my manager one time, or the one person, the manager, and it was like 402. She gives me a $5 bill and $4, and I get out 2 pennies and I put it in. My manager's like, "You can't do that. You're messing around with the money and everything else," and then wrote me up for it. Then I talked to the owner later on and I explained it. I was like, I just was trying to help out. I was like, giving him 98 cents back. I was like, just 2 pennies. And he's like, "No one's ever done that before." And he's like, "That's your own money." I was like, "Well, it's 2 pennies. I'm not really not concerned about it. I probably found most in the parking lot when I sweep out there, But he never bothered me, right? And he's like, "Don't worry about her. She's
what
fine."
What were you doing at 14? You were figuring out efficiency.
Well, exactly, because I didn't want to count out all that stuff, and there's a line of people, but it was about efficiency, effectiveness. How can I do it? How can I do it quicker? How can I do it faster? Giving out 97, 98 cents drives me nuts. And you still see that once in a while today, where it's like, "Oh, I don't have a penny," and they look at you like, "Oh yeah, I'm giving you 99 cents."
Now what it is? Well, do you want to donate this to whatever?
Do you want to round up?
Yeah.
Oh my God, dude, don't even get me started.
You know what I mean?
You can't go get a cup of coffee without donating to some cause across the world. And it's like, man, it's like, you know what? Not only do I tithe every Sunday, but I tithe every freaking day. Sure. Every place I go, I tithe. You can't go anywhere without tithing nowadays.
Right.
Oh, that's for sure. One of the other things that I think is important as well is, that you did all this with no fancy degrees. You didn't have a master's degree. You didn't have a business degree, and yet you created an amazing business. You got into an amazing trade. You do all the hiring, the firing, everything else. Talk to me about that on somebody that maybe thinks they need all this stuff when in reality they just don't.
Yeah. Just you're gonna learn. You're gonna learn if you throw yourself in the fire. You're either gonna burn or get out. Right. I mean, as bad as that sounds. You talked before when you were talking to the drive-through customers. You probably talked 1,000 times to people, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you've learned so much just from doing that, right?
Absolutely.
What was the question again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, you're good. You're good. But how, you don't have any fancy degrees or any fancy education or anything. And yet you've been able to accomplish so much. And I think there's too many people today that just feel burdened and feel trapped because they don't have the fancy degrees or the fancy education or anything. And I think it's important for them to know that they don't need it. It's not something you need. Honestly, and a lot of those degrees are worthless. Yeah. They're not worth the paper that they're printed on. Yeah. And I think, and I want to be able to hear it from you though, because you've been able to do so much with that. And, what would be your advice to those people that are interested in entrepreneurship and maybe some of the hurdles that they will encounter?
You'll get a lot of them.
Yeah.
I know that. Everything is a learning. Like if you treat everything like a learning experience, everything like a learning experience, you learn from everything. You grow. You make. You're gonna make. If I do something 100 times and you do it 5 times, I can mess up 20 times, right? And
you're gonna be still way far ahead.
Way ahead. So I mean, the hurdles with running a business come. Just today. We spent like $800 in fuel. $800 tire was blown out before 10 a.m. I was $1,600 down just today.
Literally before 10 a.m.
Before this podcast.
Yeah. When I talk to you, like I got a sear tire, I got to change out. My guy's got to get it, and those are the hurdles. Those are the hurdles.
Yeah. Now, then you go into surround yourself with. I remember in the trade, I'm all over the place, but I remember in the trade. I asked this guy, I says, what is some advice that you, I always tried to surround myself with smarter people than me. And whether it was my foreman, the GF, anybody, I would ask them, I'm like, so if you were my age, what would you do differently? Always.
I love that.
Always. I would
love that.
always ask that. And, so a lot of guys had good advice. A lot of guys didn't have good advice. But that's, you learn by doing. That's how an apprenticeship is. I learned how to, I learned how to treat people by how I was treated. I've been called the dumbest thing that God ever slung guts into.
Sure.
I'll never talk to my guys like that.
No.
Because I don't want to feel the way
Well,
that
especially
I
in the
felt.
line trade. Some of those guys are mean.
Yeah,
and the way they talk to one another, I'm like, man, you got to have thick skin.
You have
It's
to.
just a part of it.
You have to. And it's, you're not there to hang out. You're there for a cause. You're there to make the company money. You're there.
Period. No BSing.
Yeah. So there's a lot of hurdles, but surround yourself with smarter people than you. I've talked to business owners before I became a business owner, and the best advice, or not the best, but good advice was, you'll never get rich by working for somebody else.
Yeah.
And I don't want rich by any means. I want peace, and I just want
Flexibility.
yeah.
And
Last night,
all that.
4:30, the kids had a game at 5. I parked. I just went to the game.
But yeah, exactly. Like I'm doing it.
I didn't have
I'm
to
doing it.
ask. I didn't have to submit something in.
Get it approved.
Yeah.
Have 3 stamps on it
Yeah.
to get it
Like
done.
at this
and-
point, I think
yeah.
I told you before is I'm unemployable.
Yeah.
At this time.
Yeah.
you
Yes.
know.
Well, and it's it's one of those things that it's worth it, but it is a lot of work, right? And
you're working 80 hours
it's,
a week.
And one thing about the advice, and I think this is really important, because I've taken some really bad advice from people that I thought were
That you
relatively
respected.
smart
Yeah.
and respected. Yeah, respect them.
Yeah.
That's a great one. So I think it's really important is to be careful who you take advice from.
Absolutely.
That, you know what, unless somebody can, for lack of better words, open their bank account and show you that they've done it, and they've done it, be careful taking advice, because cheap advice is free, right? And a lot of people offer cheap advice, but get advice from people that are intelligent, smart, been there, done that, and have the scars to prove it.
I had a mentor. He was telling me he was in some business 101 class and teaching whatever he was, being a professor. And after school or after class, whatever, this guy gets into this 1995 beat up hunk of shit car. And this guy's telling this guy how to become successful. And this guy, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's not what you drive, right? But like it's the same thing with multiple things in life. Don't take advice from somebody you don't respect, or don't take
Exactly. Yeah, just be careful who you take advice from, because everyone will give you cheap advice.
Sure.
Right? But
Yeah.
but not all advice is good advice, and make sure if you're gonna act on someone's advice, you better make sure that they know what they're talking about. Plain and simple. Yeah. It's just absolutely amazing stuff. Well, I want to be respectful of your time, Mike, right? So something I do want to encourage everyone is get onto Dombrowski Tree Service on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, right? Mike's got some amazing videos out there. I think probably my most favorite one recently was the one I went from making $8,000 a month to $800 a month. Don't follow me for financial advice. And that's how it feels sometimes. It's like you're just constantly getting beat up, and it's like, yeah, here we go. I know you're a busy guy, so I want to be efficient of your time as well. So a big thanks, Mike, for being on the show today.
Yeah,
really means a lot.
Yeah.
And we'll definitely keep in touch.